from assenting to the controversial bill. We have details for you. Meanwhile, the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Church says it expects the president to sign the legal action challenging the constitutionality of aspects of this particular bill. Stay with us. We have details for you.
We have not had any official notification, and I've not seen any official notification in terms of details. I've not seen it in the media. I think the president indicated that he has heard that some private persons have taken the matter to court. He said he has heard. It's not been notified officially. If today, as we speak, he has been notified, it's a different matter.
Well, that's the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Church there. We'll give you details of that shortly here on Hot Edition and their position on this matter. And that matter is arising as a minister designate for local government expresses regret over 2020 election-related deaths in Techiman South. We'll give you details of that, details from the vetting of the first batch of ministerial nominees on the matter of anti-LGBTQ plus activities and the law. This bill that Parliament passed last week. Well, the Minister Designate for Tourism, Andre Kofi Ejapamesa, believes that this bill will affect the tourism industry in this country if assented to. This is a matter that took a lot of attention during the vetting of ministerial nominees. We have details for you here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. Let's get into the details now. The Supreme Court is being asked to restrain President Akufo-Addo from assenting to the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill. Legal practitioner Richard Delaskai contends the bill should not have been passed by Parliament in the first place and should thus be declared unconstitutional. The latest action filed by the legal practitioner brings to 2 the number of cases seeking to halt the anti-LGBTQ plus bill. Already, researcher Amanda Odoin is at the Apex Court seeking to stop the law from coming into force. Now, the suit filed by Richard Delaskai follows in a similar light. Now, President Akufo-Addo on Monday told the diplomatic community a pending legal action makes his assent to the bill premature. Now, let's take a listen to what the president said even before this suit was filed at the Supreme Court earlier today. So this is what the position of the president is on this particular anti-LGBTQ plus bill, because from the understanding that we get, after Parliament has done its work, it has to take a number of days for this bill to get to the presidency. As of yesterday, the president said the bill is yet to get to his desk.
Ghanaian family value. I'm aware that last week's bipartisan passage by Parliament of the proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill on a private member's motion has raised considerable anxieties in certain quarters of the diplomatic community and among some friends of Ghana that she may be turning her back on her hitherto enviable long-standing record on human rights observance and attachment to the rule of law. I want to assure you that no such backsliding will be contemplated or occasioned. I think it will serve little purpose to go at this stage into the details of the origin of this proposed law, which is yet to reach my desk. But suffice it to say that I have learned that today a challenge has been mounted in the Supreme Court by a concerned citizen to the constitutionality of the proposed legislation. In the circumstances, it would be as well for all of us to hold our hands and await the decision of the court before any action is taken.
Well, that's President Akufo-Addo there, and talking to the diplomatic community there. Now, it raises fundamental questions about what's going to be done going forward. It's unclear which of the suits the president was referring to, because Richard Kai's suit was filed today. at the Supreme Court. So the president talks about he being aware of a suit that is in place already. Man, my colleague Dennis Boveri-Wedam has been looking into the crystal ball as to how all of this has been playing out over the period. Now, Dennis, what do we know, first of all, with respect to the reliefs that Richard Delaska is seeking in this suit at the Supreme Court?
Well, so journalist and legal practitioner Richard Delaska, like you rightly mentioned, he's invoked the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, seeking that, among other things, that the president be restrained from giving his assent to this particular bill, which has been passed by Parliament to become law. He also contends that if the bill is allowed to go through, it will be inconsistent with some provisions of the Constitution which he lists. So, in essence, he's seeking 6 substantive reliefs, including an omnibus relief, which allows the court to make any orders or directions that the court deems fit. So, with your permission, let's start from the first relief.
Please.
Where he's asking the court for a declaration that upon the true and proper interpretation of Articles 33(5) of the 1992 Constitution, in light of Article 12(1) and 2, 15(1), 17(1) and 2, 18(2), 21(1) A, B, D, and E of the Constitution, the passage of the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values 2024 by Parliament on 28 February 2024 contravened the Constitution and is to that extent null, void, and of no effect. Now, all these articles that I just mentioned are articles that specifically refer to fundamental human rights. So when you look at Article 33(5), for instance, it says that the rights, duties, declarations, and guarantees relating to fundamental human rights and freedoms specifically mentioned in this chapter, and this is Chapter 5 of the 1992 Constitution, shall not be regarded as excluding others not specifically mentioned, which are considered to be inherent in a democracy and intended to secure the freedom and dignity of man. So that is to say that even though the Constitution lists some specific rights, it is not to be understood that those that have not been specifically listed in there are not to be protected. So then he goes on to list the others, like I mentioned, who talks about the protection of the rights and freedoms, which have to do with placing an obligation on the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, and all other arms of government and their agencies to enforce that to be able to protect the rights of all individuals. Also, he makes the case that the dignity of all people shall be inviolable. He cites Article 15(1). He cites Article 17(1), that all persons are equal before the law. So, in essence, the first relief is saying that the passage of this bill will infringe on the rights of these people, and that, in his view, is a contravention of the Constitution, for which reason it should be declared null and void. Now, the next relief has to do with a declaration that the Speaker of Parliament contravened Article 108, A, 108A, subclause II of the 1992 Constitution, in the light of Article 926 A, B, C, and D, by admitting and allowing Parliament to proceed upon and pass the Human Sexual Family Values Bill 2024 into law.
So essentially, questioning Parliament shouldn't have even done this at all.
Yes, and this the President has commented on it before. It was the same basis the President used to refuse to assent to the Anti-Witchcraft Bill and then the Armed Forces Bill. That is to say that where a private member's bill is put before Parliament, it should not have any financial implications on the consolidated fund. And in his view, if they allow this to pass, this particular bill will have implications on the consolidated fund. He also makes reference to the exercise of discretionary powers, that is by way of the Speaker's conduct, that if the Speaker was to exercise discretion, it ought to have been guided by Article 296 of the 1992 Constitution. Now, that also relates to the Relief 3, which talks about bills, the kind of bills that Parliament should be able to pass. And if it's supposed to be a private member's bill, what needs to be done? That essentially has been looked at under the Relief 3. Now for Relief 4, it's a matter that has been to court before. In the case of Justice Abdullah and the Attorney General, it has to do with the quorum that Parliament needs to have to be able to start proceedings, and then the quorum Parliament needs to have if it's going to vote on a certain matter. So his specific relief is that a declaration that upon a true and proper interpretation of Articles 102 and 104(1) of the Constitution, Parliament lacked the requisite quorum to pass the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill 2021. Mind you, under Article 102, if Parliament is to sit, it's required to have a minimum of 1/3 of all members in the House,
which is about 98.
Yes.
Yes.
And then if it's voting on a matter to take a decision, then at least half of the members of Parliament would have to be present before they are able to vote. And then majority of the members who vote in favor or against something, then the decision is made. It is his view that Parliament did not have the quorum to pass this particular bill in question. So that is the other one. Now, in the others, which he does not make specific reference to any articles.
So he makes the point on what? 98 MPs were not present?
He says there was no quorum
when this
bill was passed. So yes, and for the fact that he references Article 102 and then 104(1), it presupposes that either there was no quorum for Parliament to even sit that day, or there was no quorum for Parliament to take that decision. Because mind you, the 102 is for Parliament to sit, the 110.
Wouldn't the Speaker have known this?
It probably may have been an oversight. So when it gets to this point, he would have to adduce evidence to show that indeed Parliament either did not have the quorum to sit.
So then at this point, Parliament will now be required to produce the register of the day.
Precisely, if it becomes necessary. But then he, as the one going, he is the plaintiff, so the onus first will be on him to show that indeed the Parliament don't have the quorum to do what they did.
But I've been listening to, in fact, having a conversation with some MPs who say that this issue is a closed book. It's a done deal for Parliament, and that the Apex Court cannot instruct Parliament on how to do its work.
But we'll be here before.
Because if you make reference to, for instance, this Justice Abdullahi as Attorney General, is one that also is, as it were, at variance with the GH Mensah versus Attorney General ruling, which specifically gives Parliament that power of autonomy, as it were, for them to do their work, and that they are master of their own rules.
Yes, so this is a matter that
they are not coming back to it.
This is a matter that the courts have answered in different ways. They usually capture it as being the political doctrine, the political question doctrine, where they would say that the organs of government should be allowed to operate without interference from other arms of government.
Absolutely.
But when you look at the Justice Abdullahi case, the court makes the case that for the fact that the operations of Parliament had something to do with the Constitution of Ghana, and they are under the obligation to enforce the Constitution of Ghana, they have to intervene. So in that same light, I'm just guessing, that's the reason Richard Zalaskai says that Parliament did not meet the quorum as provided for by the Constitution to do what they did. And once it is an alleged act which is against the Constitution, he thinks that the Supreme Court should intervene in this particular matter. But of course, he says that in a sense there should be a restraining order, even from the Speaker himself and the Clerk of Parliament, from presenting this particular bill to the President of the Republic of Ghana. Mind you, the bill is still before Parliament. The Parliament has not transmitted the bill to the Presidency yet. We understand hopefully by Friday, when we spoke to Nelson Dafemako yesterday, he had mentioned that by Friday, the bill should be sent to the Presidency. But this suit says that no, stop Parliament from sending the bill to the President. It goes on further to say that if the President by any means gets the bill, stop the President from signing this particular bill into law.
I see. For
the various reasons that have been cited above already.
Interesting, and we'll see how things play out. And it's a very interesting development, at least from what we have seen so far. If you look at the timelines of this anti-LGBTQ plus bill, February 28th, the bill was passed via a bipartisan consensus in Parliament. February 29th, the international community began to react to this. And then also, if you see, for instance, February 29th, same day, civil society organizations, about 18 of them, threatened legal action. Yesterday, we saw what the finance minister indicated, that some $3.8 billion could be lost if the president assents this bill into law. We've seen as well, yesterday, the president giving indication that because of this particular suit at the Supreme Court, they would have no option than to wait to see how this suit plays out. What is interesting, though, is the fact that now even the Speaker, Dennis, is being injuncted, right?
Well, that's the relief that the plaintiff in this matter is seeking. It hasn't been granted yet.
We'll see how it plays out in court.
Certainly.
It's a very, very interesting...
Yes, he wants the speaker together with the clerk injuncted. He wants the president himself also injuncted from signing to the bill.
Well, this is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, also on W 93.5 and Y and beyond. Now, some ministers, or ministerial nominees, in fact, are being vetted as we speak. The Minister of Designate for Tourism, Culture and Creative Arts, that's Andre Japamesa, who appeared before the committee earlier today, had this to say about the anti-LGBTQ plus bill.
Ultimately, people want to experience our culture. It really shouldn't matter whether we are opposed to a certain lifestyle within our cultural setting. But it all comes down to how you promote Ghana and position ourselves within the law, that is, if His Excellency the President assents to it. Okay, so I know it's the most topical subject matter now. Indeed, yesterday I was having conversations with my brother and some friends of mine at home, and it came up what your response would be when this question is posed to you. But I still haven't figured out an answer. But all I can say is that it definitely will have an impact one way or the other. Some people who believe that lifestyle should be allowed everywhere may find Ghana not an attractive place. Some people who believe in our culture would find Ghana an attractive place. And so it all comes down to how you market Ghana and what it is that we offer to the world. The listing that we have, that we are encouraging people to visit our country as opposed to others. And of course, like my good friend, Chief Whip on the minority side indicated, if you promote domestic tourism, that then helps you to deal with whatever shortfalls or issues that may arise from some.
Well, so that's Andre Japamesa there. But the Deputy Minority Chief Whip, Ahmed Ibrahim, is urging the religious community in the country to pile more pressure on the president to sign the anti-gay bill into law. He argues that this action must be taken due to the importance of the bill in asserting the religious and cultural identity of the country. Speaking to 3FM, Ahmed Ibrahim also said that the leaders of parliament can easily marshal the two-thirds majority in numbers to force the hand of the president to sign the bill if he refuses to do so.
And it's on that note that I'm calling on Reverend Kusibuafo, Reverend Kusibuatin, Professor Opokunyina, Reverend Joyce Aye, the moderator, Professor Mate of the Presbyterian Church, Reverend Oponefrimpong, and all those people. We trusted the members of the Economical Council. We trusted our traditional rulers and chiefs. We trusted the office of the chief imam, Sheikh Alhaji Nuru Shaributu. Your office brought the bill. Now, as members of parliament, we pass it. Our president is not reneging on passing or assenting to it. Clearly, look, they are the nation's conscience. Those names that I've mentioned, they know more than what we the politicians know. Even they know more than the president. Therefore, they must insist on putting pressure on His Excellency the President to sign it. It is not about His Excellency. Look, we signed a social contract with you to be our president. You are not there on your own. It is not what you want. It is what we want. Therefore, if this is how the pace setters, the pioneers have been doing with Ghana, would they have been a president of the Republic of Ghana?
Well, so that's Ahmed Ibrahim there. Now, let's get on to the telephone. Now, Apostle Emmanuel Okule Norte is with the General Secretary of the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, GPCC. Apostle, I thank you so much for joining us here on Hot Edition. Good evening, if you can hear me.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good evening.
Now, this path that this anti-LGBTQ plus bill has traveled, and I know this is one that for you at the Ghana the Pentecostal and Charismatic Council you've been following quite closely. We are at a point where there is a suit at the Supreme Court. The president says, well, I'm not going to assent to or take a decision on this until the outcome of this suit is determined by the Supreme Court. What's the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council's position on all this?
Yeah, thank you very much, and good evening to your listeners, Alfred. I think this is one very big test of the strength of our democracy and the purpose for which we stepped into this arena of governance called democracy. Democracy, principally, is about numbers. Democracy is about the interest of the people. Normally, what the majority votes for is what you go by. And you don't want to negate or, if you like, ignore the concerns of the minority. You find a way of also taking care of them and carrying them along. Within that context, I just heard the MP Ahmed, former MP, is it or so?
He's still a member of parliament.
Okay,
Ahmed Ibrahim. He is the deputy minority chief.
The honorable member of parliament. What he just said, it resonates with me very well and with the GPCC. That you see, in a democracy, the president Akufo-Addo, or rather, let me start first with the parliamentarians who passed the bill. The parliamentarians, they didn't walk to parliament by themselves. They represent constituents, electorate, and the electorate voted them to go and represent the electorate in the parliament. And so they take decisions on behalf, for and on behalf of the electorate. Scale it up to the presidency. The president was also voted into that office. He didn't acquire it by heritage. He didn't work there. He was voted for. So he has to act for the interest of the Ghanaian. And so GPCC expects nothing more than the president assenting to this bill because, Alfred, as you would have known, surveys that have been done shows that an overwhelming, over 90% to 98% majority of Ghanaians who were surveyed were, averse to this LGBTQI thing. So Ghanaians have spoken severally about this. And so the president cannot be the president, panning to the international community. We expect that he would respond to our interests as Ghanaians. And nothing more, nothing less, please.
But this is his initial position now. Speaking to the diplomatic community, he says, whatever decision is going to take is not going to infringe on the human rights respect, or the respect for human rights image that Ghana has. And the fact that he whatever decision he's going to take would also not bruise the relationship that the diplomatic community has with Ghana.
Yeah.
And that he would want to wait to see how things play out. It already gives you pointers, is it not, about what the president intends to do?
Yes. Again, you see, we must look at it in context. His Excellency President Akufo-Addo is a lawyer and has been known as a human rights lawyer, a lawyer for democracy. He's been foreign minister under ex-President Kufuor. So he has a lot of international, links to the UN, to the other international bodies. And so what I have said earlier to some of your sister stations is that the president finds himself between a rock and a hard place. He is quite familiar with the international terrain, international diplomacy and what goes on there, and people know him. And then he is also accountable to the Ghanaian populace. And so the president is in a very tight place trying to manage both ends, unfortunately. Which shouldn't be the case. His allegiance primarily should be to Ghanaians. And so the court issue, I think, is giving the president a reason, and I say that as a tongue-in-cheek thing. He's using that as a way of delaying the process, because I don't think somebody going to court should stop the president from signing. Again, information we received at GPCC was that as at yesterday, the bill, as passed by Parliament, has not reached the Jubilee House. I mean, there are some final things being done to it before the Speaker will dispatch it to the Jubilee House. So, given that scenario, the bill is not, as we speak, on the President's table for signing. Let's see how it goes. When it gets to him and we know it's been delivered, then we will want to know what he does with it. But as has been said severally, his first allegiance is to Ghanaians and the Ghanaian community, not the international community. They didn't vote for him. We voted for him. And so he will listen to us. We expect that he will do what will settle the Ghanaian populace. And that is where we stand on this, please.
Well, but how about the financial implications that the finance ministry talks about? That Ghana stands the risk of losing some over $3.8 billion if the president accents this bill into law. And you see, to what extent can we push this sovereignty argument that we are a sovereign state, the president owes allegiance to the Ghanaian people first than any other, when we go cup in hand begging? In fact, we are depending on these institutions, organizations that have indicated their lack of support for this bill, for some kind of support for certain projects that we intend to prosecute in this country. So really, the reality is that, yes, we are pushing this sovereignty argument, but we are not financially sovereign. So that's a limitation, is it not?
Well, maybe this is a good opportunity to take the bull by the horn and prove our sovereignty, Alfred. Because, you see, the finance ministry circular or advice or caution that they gave to the presidency, I think you cannot fault them. They are calling attention to the consequence of what we are doing. And I think that is fair, that they make us aware what is ahead once the bill is signed. So that, in my view, and the view of the GPCC that I am General Secretary of, you see, what it means is that we should begin to strategize and look at our alternative approaches to raising funds. And others have said, other think tanks, I mean, I've heard Franklin Kujo, I've heard him speak, I've heard others speak, that the $3.8 billion is not something too far from what Ghana can raise if we discipline ourselves and we intend to do it. If we cut on expenditure, we are very disciplined. We look at the corruption monies that have been lost to corrupt practices and, the leakages in our system. That 3.5 billion is not far from us to raise. So, yes, we should be able to raise that and go on, find other ways of surviving. I mean, we can't depend on foreign aid. I mean, to thy kingdom come. At a point, we must win ourselves. And I believe that there is a good opportunity to bite the bullets and be ready for the consequences. It may be tough initially, but with discipline and hard work, we should be able to get ourselves out of that quagmire.
But, Apostle, and I do agree that certainly we can't keep doing the same things and expect different results. But we are at this point in the country where continuously we keep doing the same things. If COVID couldn't change the attitude of our leaders, how would this bill you're talking about? Because everything you're saying is that if we do this, if we do that, you predicate all the expectations with an if clause, meaning that we don't have what it takes to reach the 3.5 or 3.8 billion right now. We do. But we haven't shown that we can do it.
I think we do, and that is why I am saying, you see, once again, from the church position, sometimes certain situations confront you and they look so adverse. But if you are able to marshal yourself and position yourself well, you should be able to get out of it, and it takes you to a new level. And I'm saying that probably this is coming as a blessing in disguise. Let them take off their aid and let us begin to work our way out of this quagmire. And for all you know, it is a door into our self-sustenance. And so what we require is that we require self-discipline. By the way, the monies that we are getting from the IMF, from the World Bank, as has been said previously, elsewhere, they are not free. They are loans we are contracting.
Well, some of them are grants, actually.
Yes, some are grants. But the larger majority are loans we are contracting. And as somebody has said, I mean, in contracting the loan, there was no condition about it being predicated on we not signing an LGBTQI bill. And so if now it's being introduced, then there is an issue of unfairness. Okay. Ghana is a shareholder in the IMF and the World Bank. That is how come we can access funds from there. We are shareholders. And so we cannot be treated as though we are, lay people just coming in and begging for money.
Well,
the church stands together with our Muslim brothers and sisters, with the traditional authorities, constituting well over 95% of Ghana's population. And we say we don't want LGBTQI.
Okay.
We don't want it.
Apostle Note, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
The name is Apostle Emmanuel Tete.
Apostle Emmanuel
Tete.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. The producers will take note of that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Apostle Emmanuel Tete, who is the General Secretary of the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, giving us details on that. Now, let's stay a bit further on this matter because Martin Pebo is a private legal practitioner. He's joining us on the telephone, one of the foremost human rights lawyers we have in this country. Martin Pebo, I appreciate your time for joining us. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Mr. Ocansey.
Well, I know that you've seen a copy of this suit by Richard Sky against Parliament and the Supreme Court regarding this anti-LGBTQ plus bill. Now, what is the consequence of it? Is that to say that, in effect, if granted, this act or the decision by Parliament to approve this bill can be overturned, even though Parliament is a master of its own rules, and at least based on the rulings of the J.H. Mensah versus the Attorney General, can Parliament's decision be challenged if it is not a closed book as yet?
Okay, good. So what will happen is that if the Supreme Court agrees with Richard Sky, then that will be deadly. It will have deadly consequences for the act that's been passed by Parliament. Because from what he's saying, it means he wants to invalidate everything. But the greater question to be looking at now is whether the actually can be an injunction against the president at this time. You see, as I can say in our jurisprudence, often when it comes to big public projects, the Supreme Court doesn't restrict the government lightly. A number of applications for injunctions to prevent government from going ahead. You remember the e-levy, right? And then also in 2012, we call it France versus Attorney General, when they were trying to stop the EC from going ahead with the elections because certain constitutional instruments have not been passed. So many, and we can continue and mention other examples. Those have failed. So the thing is that if the application for an injunction does not succeed, then it would appear that the president would be free to sign. That's one school of thought. But otherwise, the general, or let me even say that the dominant thought in the legal profession is that if there's a suit against something, whatever you're doing, you have to stop. So, like, let me give the common example. You are building, and then somebody challenges you. So, Mr. Ocansey, you are putting up a building on a land that you know perfectly belongs to you, but another person says, no, it's his. You have to stop, even without an order of injunction. So, you can remember that in 2016, so before not 2016, earlier, Professor Kweku Asare sued the Attorney General on the matter of the Constitutional Review Commission's work. I'm not aware that there was a specific injunction against government. Yet you see that ex-President Mahama stayed his hands off because the matter was in court. He didn't go ahead because I'm not aware an injunction was expressly obtained against the government. You see, so they stayed off. So the point I'm reiterating is that if government wants to go with the dominant thought, which would be that once the matter is before the court, the president will not sign. It will not be unusual. It would be normal practice. In natural fact, they will say that is commendable because as president, he's waiting. Except that in the case of President Kufuor, you see, it's because when the e-levy matter went to court, he didn't wait. And we can understand if the e-levy had not come into force, it appears the economy would have collapsed. You see, so people will tell you that the e-levy is an exception and all that. So these are the various schools of thought. So it's a democracy. So the majority opinion would be that once a matter is in court, don't do anything to prejudice it, whether there is an application for injunction or not. But secondly, we also know that to every legal rule you hear, there is an exception. Yes, and so sometimes when government thinks that a greater harm will be caused to the public, like the e-levy case, if they hadn't implemented, we would have had big revenue shortfalls and all that, then they would go ahead. So these are the schools of thought.
It's a very important point you make, that to every legal rule, there's an exception. At least that axiom is there. So in the case of the e-levy, the president applied this exception. But the argument that many who are making reference to this precedents are making is that if the president applied this exception in the e-levy case, then he must also be seen applying the exception in this particular case. Is that one that would also have any legal basis for that matter, taking into consideration this suit at the apex court?
On the face of it, it doesn't appear so. The two are different. I say so because, we've existed, we've had this state of affairs for decades. So unless we can show that there is a big onslaught, the gay movement on our society, it doesn't appear anything extraordinary is happening so as to compel the president to sign immediately. Yes, let's go over this. What we are looking at that in the e-levy case, we're told that, hey, if it wasn't signed, our economy will collapse. Yes, though later it turned out that those statements that the economy will collapse, etc., were false, but still you would see that by the end of the year, the financial year, we have raised some money from it, and it helped us. I mean, of course, it created greater hardship, etc. Yes, I'm aware of all that. But what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, yes, hardship and etc., that helped to prevent the collapse. So more or less, money was taken from citizens' pocket to secure the government. We'll debate that another day. Good. But with the gay bill, right now, what I'm asking is that if Kufuor doesn't sign today, is there anything that is radically going to wipe out this nation or immediately going to engulf big sections of our society in such a manner that there is a threat? Is there an immediate and imminent danger that Ghana as a state will be wiped out if it doesn't sign today or tomorrow? So if we are not seeing it in terms of the imagery I'm trying to create, then it appears we can wait. So perhaps the Supreme Court has to expedite action in terms of hearing the suit. You remember in the case I led, Domlevo versus, not Domlevo, sorry, the CSOs, because it concerned Domlevo, sometimes I will make a mistake and say Domlevo, but Domlevo was not on the suit. CDD and 10 others versus Attorney General. So CDD, Imani, One Ghana Movement, so many reputable CSOs came together and sued the guy, President Kufuor, they sued the Attorney General for the conduct of President Kufuor in hounding Domlevo out of office on the pretext of he should take his leave because he had caught them, stealing, and he wanted to stop that, right? So the point is that in that particular case, the Supreme Court lamented how our rules are not efficient. So the Supreme Court tasked the Rules of Court Committee to try and improve on the rules. That has not been done yet. But all I'm saying is that if the Supreme Court wants to hear the case quickly, they can do so. And so maybe that is a more reasonable and realistic step for us to take, that more scrutiny should be put on the suit and how fast the Supreme Court can deal with it. Yes, I think that makes a better compromise that let the court deal with this quickly. Look at the dispatch with which the e-levy case was dealt with. Yes, so the Supreme Court can do it again, notwithstanding the fact that the new rules that the Supreme Court asked the Rules of Court Committee to come out with have not been enacted yet.
Very important legal explanation and some education there. As always, Martin Pebo, thank you. Thank you so much for your thoughts.
You're welcome.
Martin Pebo is private legal practitioner, is one of the foremost human rights lawyers we have in this country, joining us here on Hot Edition on this matter. And we'll see how things play out, and a number of reactions to this, which we're also going to keep the steam on here on 3FM 92.7. But Parliament earlier today was thrown into a frenzy when the Member of Parliament for the Pando constituency stormed the chamber with a ball of kinky and a bag of rice to paint a dire economic situation. Now, despite an attempt by the second Deputy Speaker to stop the MP, she would not budge, stressing she had exhibits to the real state of the nation. Now, this is what happened in Parliament earlier today. This is what Helen Ntoso did in Parliament.
The then candidate, Akufo-Addo, said one city Kenke is putting Ghanaians into extreme difficulty. Today, a shrink size of the Kenke is selling for 5 cedis. 5 Ghana cedis. Which means that Ghana is in gargantuan crisis. If 1 cedi was difficult, then 5 cedis is worse. Mr. Speaker, this is my favorite bread brand. I've eaten it for years. 2016. Brand. I've eaten it for years. 2016.
Well, so that's Helen Ntoso there, given a clear expression.
Today, bread is 20 cedis.
And Helen Ntoso, Member of Parliament for the Pando constituency there. What happened in Parliament earlier today? A number of you can relate to this. Many messages coming through. Nanaya says, good evening, Alfred. I went to the market on Tuesday, and we understand that we're supposed to be in the period of bountiful harvest, but tomatoes was 20 cedis, you say. Thank you very much. This one here says that it is indeed the case that the price of kenke has shot up, and that is the reality of our economy. We must live with it and also speak out. Minister for Local Government designate Martin J. Mensah-Kosa had described as regrettable the incidents that led to the killing of 8 persons in Techiman South in the 2020 election. Speaking at his vetting, Martin Kosa, who is also the Member of Parliament for the Techiman South constituency, said while he has taken steps towards rehabilitation of the family of the victims, he believes that no one should be killed in elections going forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I believe it was December 8th, and it was after the announcement of the results. Mr. Chairman, what I think we should, or I would say, is that it was a very regrettable and sad event. The honorable member who just posed the question would attest to the fact that in the run-up to the elections in Techiman South, we had relative peace. There was cordiality, and for the first time, the parties came together, worked together, prosecuted a campaign devoid of violence, tensions. Little did we know that on the 8th of December, after the declaration of results, we're going to have what we had. As politicians, we are in elections to win, but human life can never be a substitute for winning an election, especially so when it was about my victory or an election that I was involved. A lot of lessons have been learned. I think that we have come together even much more than before that incident. I relate very well with the family, and we have helped them to get back on life.
But I think that it does not end there. There was an election where there was an election security task force headed by the police commander. I believe in learning lessons and making sure this does not happen again. They ought to have given us some report. Mr. Chairman, I'm aware that the Honorable Ambrose Derry, who was then Minister for Interior, traveled to Techiman and assured us that there was some work ongoing. And later on, we were made to understand that the matter had been sent to court. And so we were waiting to see what they do until that happens.
Well, so that's a Techiman South Member of Parliament who appeared before the committee for vetting in Parliament. The Minister designated for the Ministry of Tourism has also appeared before the committee, the Appointments Committee of Parliament. Andre Japamesa, Minister designated for the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources, Lady Asera Malasan. Also, as we speak, the Minister designated for the Gender, Children and Social Protection Ministry, Daquan Newman, is before the Appointments Committee of Parliament, also answering questions from the members of the committee. We'll go for business after this quick break. Stay with us here on Hot Edition.
BFM Gobe Festival 2024. Gobe Lovers and Gobe Eaters Association. Time now, so get ready for the biggest Gobe event in Ghana on Saturday, 16th March at the Accra Mall Interchange Park from 9 a.m. Come experience a food festival interlaced with fun activities and music performances like never before. Be there to savor different flavors and combos of Gobe, like Gobe and rice or Gobe and kenke. Throw some pepper on the side, avocado in the center circle, and eggs on the top corner. Pardon? Last year was terrific. This year will be a showdown. Don't miss out on the gastronomic delights and vibrant atmosphere. Are you a Gobe seller or you know anyone? Call now to register 0532-200-927 or 0531-100-927. Let's link up. The 3FM Gobe Festival 2024. Your Gobe joint the B. Join us on Saturday, 16th March at 9 a.m. and let's transform the Accra Mall Interchange Park into a Gobe lovers paradise. 3FM 92.7, your urban lifestyle radio station.
Sponsored by Glovo App, Bigo Drinks, Inkulenu Foods, Fidelity Bank, Gino Tomato Paste, Dewa Chop Money, Flora Tissues, Sankofa Natural Spices.
Hello there, good evening. It's time now for the business segment here on Hot Edition. Coming up tonight, Ghana's Finance Ministry focuses to navigate economic challenges amid LGBTQ plus bill controversy. I am Michael Obodu. I'll bring you the details of our top stories and more shortly. Please stay. Well, thank you for staying with us. Straight into our top story now. The Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance designate, Abnose Asare, has emphasized her ministry's commitment to supporting the economy despite the ongoing debate surrounding the LGBTQ plus bill. The bill recently passed and awaiting presidential assent has stirred mixed reactions, with the Ministry of Finance warning of potential economic ramifications. According to the ministry, Ghana could face a loss of $3.8 billion if the bill is enacted into law. She spoke to the media on the sidelines of the Freedom Market organized by the Ghana Exim Bank to commemorate the country's 67th Independence Day celebrations.
Based on the passage, we've heard sentiments for various quarters, but I think what we want to do is to make sure that we support the economy, no matter the position that is taken by anybody. We support the economy to implement the 2024 budget. That's the most important, to implement the 2024 budget, raise the needed revenue. One, this year is an election year, raise the needed revenue for the Electoral Commission to also organize the elections, and any other thing that we believe will help us, support us as a country, because we love our country, and if there's anything we can do, not just in the position that I find myself, But all of us, individually and collectively, we have to do to support our country, to make our country great and strong.
So that was the Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance designator, Abna Osei-Asare, speaking there. Now, away from that, the Ghanaian cedi has seen significant depreciation since the beginning of 2024, with the local currency shedding almost 6% to the dollar, crossing 13 cedis 5 pesos per dollar on the forex market. This comes after the cedi experienced relative stability for the larger part of 2023. Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School, Professor John Gachi, has been speaking to 3 Business on the possible causes of the depreciation of the cedi.
I think you are seeing the demand for foreign currency to import crude petroleum products into the country. That is one reason. And I believe you also do know that this time around, the demand for import and foreign currency also go up in the country because economic activities are settling down and people need to engage in their usual import activities. And I believe you also know that this is a time that we are anticipating companies which are operating in the country per the law to transfer their benefit to those who are financing the company in the country.
So you hear the Professor John Gachi, the Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School, bringing an end to the business segment here on Hot Edition. For more business stories, please check out our website. It's 3news.com/business. I am Michael Obodu. Thank you for listening. As always, please stay safe. Up next, sports and yeah.
All right, so it's time for us to bring you the latest in the world of sports. My name is Thierry Winyan, and let's get into the details. And we start with the Ghana athletics, or better still, the Africa Games hosted here in Ghana in swimming. And Ghana has been on the rise in recent years. The new generation of swimmers, led by Abeku Jackson, are keen to make their mark. Now, the team, supervised by head coach Daniel Opare, alongside Russian coach Pavel Kutashev, trained at the Aquatic Center in Boteman earlier today. Team Ghana's coach Kutashev says his team has done great work so far in order to be ready for the Games.
Training to recover from all the work that we did before, and I would say that we're pretty ready.
All right, so that was the head coach of the Team Ghana's swim team, Kutashev. Now, Ghana's captain Abeku Jackson has reached the top 10 in all swimming events at the last Africa Games, stated how ready the team is for the task ahead.
For us, every athlete, every Ghanaian athlete's dream to get on the podium. Of course, it's my target also to get on the podium. For us here, we are lucky to host it in Ghana because we have family and friends. We have support. We have the support of the Ghanaians. So, of course, it's our dream to get on the podium. It's our dream to raise the country's flag high, to listen to the national anthem being played for us, and to give our best to the country.
Let's move on from there and look at some football news. And in the UEFA Champions League, Bayern takes on Lazio later today at the Allianz Arena in the Champions League round of 16, second leg. Also, Real Sociedad will be hosting Paris Saint-Germain as well. But let's focus on the Bayern game because their head coach, that's Thomas Tuchel, says they need to win this, obviously, to ease the pressure.
I think everyone is aware that it is important, and that obviously in a situation like that, a certain amount of pressure is to be expected with the squad. And obviously with the first leg results, it's not going to be super easy. I think the pressure is going to be normal, and that the pressure is needed to bring special performances. Obviously the situation is clear. We need to win with 2 goals more.
Thomas Tuchel is the head coach of Bayern Munich. And that'll be all for the sports here on Hot Edition with me, Thierry Nyan. Entertainment is next with Adjoanuela.
Well, good evening. Let's do some entertainment here on Hot Edition. My name is Noella Donko. Now, Wendy Shea visits and donates 10,000 Ghana cedis to KK Kabobo. Now, news broke about a fortnight ago that veteran musician KK Kabobo was down with a kidney disease and needed support. Now, Gamro and personalities including the former president John Mahama, as well as the second lady Samira Baumia, have all gone to the aid of the High Life for contributing money for his treatments. The latest to visit and lend a helping hand to the ailing musician is Ghanaian songstress and Rough Town record signee Wendy Shea. Now, Wendy Shea donated an amount of 10,000 Ghana cedis to support him pay his medical bills. Well, that wraps up the entertainment news segment here on Hot Edition and even Hot Edition on the whole. Thank you so much for spending your 1 hour with us. Catch us same time tomorrow with some more entertainment news.